Yeah, how's everyone doing today? I hope everyone's good. It's been a minute. I mean, by a minute, I mean I think last time was Friday. So today we'll be looking into this game. I'll run you through the basic controls and then the basic objectives, and then I'll let him go from there with any kind of key points, tips, tricks, anything else. So yeah, in this game you're going around. Actually, maybe you want to explain the premise. You might do a better job than me.
Yes, basically what you have to do is you have to complete what are called photo bounties. And what that is you have to take a certain photo however you like. You know, you can do it a lot of different ways, and all of the objectives are done in a way where you can complete them really open-endedly. But so see where it says, like, take a photo of 7 birds. Julian, try and take a photo in the level that has 7 birds in the photo. So that's not 7 individual photos of one bird. It's one photo with 7 birds in it. So give it a go.
Alright, let me see what I can do. Oh yeah, in this game there's a double jump, so keep that in mind. It's very helpful for traversal.
We never explained that, and I think some people, they realize they can do a lot more. Later in the game as well, if you complete all the bonus objectives, you also unlock jet boots that'll let you jump, like triple jump, but also like really high.
Oh yeah, I think I have those equipped. Sorry, I may have too much unlocked.
No, that's alright. Yeah, so the other thing, I guess, like, because Julian's got everything unlocked, is you can also change your lenses by using the scroll wheel, and the lenses are also tied to certain objectives. So, like, certain objectives you need to complete it with a telephoto, and you know, a telephoto is a little bit different because it already starts really zoomed in. So if you're trying to, you know, take a photo of something close, you're going to need to like walk backwards a little bit to get it in shot.
I'm still trying to get these 7 birds, man.
Well, maybe you got to get a lens that's a little bit wider.
There we go. We did it. Alright, so when you hear that, I don't know if you guys heard the keyword there, but I mean, sorry, not the keyword. There's some audio clip that plays when you actually hit the bounty. So after I exit out of this, it'll show that I've completed it. And then we have all these different filters. So we got exposure, got color balances, color tints, saturation, contrast, and hue shift, bloom, and chromatic aberration. There you go. You want any add-ons for those?
Well, you know, something so interesting is that, like, I guess it's like a cultural thing, is that based on where people are, their photos tend to look really different. Like, something I noticed is that, like, in Japan, like, players from Japan, they will take photos and make the sky this really nice blue. And I think that might be because, like, this is just what I'm thinking, is that, like, when different cultures, like, have photography and marketing and stuff, there's, like, different, you know, default looks, if that makes sense. Like, if anyone remembers, like, back in 2011, every game had, like, a weird blue tint on it. You know, every video game, like, if you think of, like, you know, Battlefield or Hitman Absolution, they had this weird blue tint, and that was like a, I guess, American photo styling at the time. And so, like, it's really interesting because, like, you can tell just sometimes by looking at people's photos, like, where they're from, just based on, like, what it looks like. So I think that's really interesting. But yeah, the idea is that once you take your photo, you have free reign to sort of edit and correct it however you like. So Julian's done this pretty awesome thing. I've actually never seen anyone do it like that. It's pretty cool.
Just messing around.
I think it's the idea that, like, when you play the game, you can sort of, like, you can really, like, create your own style and you know, put your own touch on the photos. Yeah, the idea is that, like, when you play the game, you're slowly unlocking new lenses at the same time you're unlocking new, like, color correction stuff. So if you have no experience with photography at all, it sort of acts like a tutorial on, like, you know, let's just introduce the concept slowly. Like, you know, when you play through the first level, you unlock a telephoto lens, and that sort of shows you, like, what's the difference between sort of standard lens you get and then, you know, this big sniper long lens that'll let you zoom in very close. And, you know, then the next level has a couple of objectives that are based around that rule. That's kind of like how we play on the I play on the whole game, is this idea that, like, you drip fed a little bit of content each level that sort of acts like a tutorial just based in the objective. So, like, the objective might require you to use, you know, like, a certain type of lens, and that means you'll have to, like, learn how to like position yourself properly for that.
Yeah.
So Julian's just taking photo of the skateboard here.
Got it. Oh, it didn't even hit the Union Jack actually. Maybe I zoomed in too much.
You gotta be close by. So see that little
magnifying
glass? That means you gotta kind of be standing really close to it. So that's actually, in the game, just to simplify it, we called it just close by, but like, in actual photography terms, I believe that's called a like macro shot, which is where you're standing close to the subject, and then you can use what's called like a macro lens, which is one which has a very, very shallow depth of field, and you can get these really, really like, they're called macro because the idea is that you're making a small thing big. So, you might have seen certain time-lapse photography, they do that as well, where they do that but on a big object to make it look small. It's sort of like an inverse of that, and I
think a funny thing about things like camera term, one thing about camera term, so it's like, for example, you were talking about macro lens there, and I think back in the day, or not even back in the day, maybe like 10 years ago, a lot of people might not know what like a macro setting is or any of that, right? But I feel like your people's knowledge, like the general population's knowledge of like photo taking scales a lot with modern phone capabilities, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of phones nowadays come with just like a macro setting, like standard, So it's like, that's when I first found out that macro even existed, even as a term, Yeah,
it's like modern phones are actually like pretty good for entry-level photography. Like, if you've got like a modern smartphone, you can either like pick up lenses that can clip on, or like just use the camera's lenses itself. Because like, my partner, she has an iPhone, and one of the lenses on it is like a wide angle, and I was like, hey, this is actually like pretty comparable to the effect you get from like a real wide angle.
Yeah, right.
And I guess like, where we're probably going to go at some point is that they'll start having fisheye lenses on them as well, which you can get in this game. And the idea with a fisheye is it's sort of designed to make your image look circular. And people use them for like a lot of stuff. Like some people use like a fisheye lens for like skateboarding photography, and like they'll have that there, and it's kind of like, when someone's doing like a sick ollie or something, it sort of makes the board bend out and stuff, and it works pretty good.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, so I mean, do you want to go into the process of the game? Like, what was for you the most challenging aspect of the game making? And then what do you think, came the most natural?
Yeah, well, so, the story is that the game took 8 months to make, and that was by necessity because I was losing my job, but I think it's the kind of thing where basically what I think the biggest thing was, and this is sort of a rule I think most indies, especially ones who are just sort of getting into it, and like if anyone's in the audience and they're thinking of getting into games, this is like a really good place to start, is like make something that's achievable and like know when to cut off your scope in like a friend of mine sort of said, like, hey, get an idea, polish it, and just with that small idea, like, see what you can do with it, and don't let like feature creep come in, where like we're adding way more stuff that's probably not even needed. Like, for example, the original scope of the game, when I first like thought of the idea, I thought to keep it really simple, imagine if like you couldn't even jump. Like I was thinking, what if it was a game where like not jumping was like part of the challenge, where maybe it was like, to get high up, you need to like travel around and use stairs and stuff, right? Then, I kind of really looked at what I wanted the vision of the game to actually be in terms of like, we want to get people being creative and stuff like that. And it was the idea that like, well, actually, if you can let people jump or at least like move a little bit out of the bounds and stuff like that, you're giving players more creative freedom to like, take photos and stuff.
Yeah.
And to give you an example of like ideas that I had that obviously didn't make the cut, but hey, there's always Umurangi 2 or something like that. Is
make a sequel.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would fit with like the tone and stuff of the game, but like, it'd be kind of cool if you could like ride a push bike, like a bicycle.
Yeah.
Because it could be like the kind of thing where something I was thinking about if we're ever going to do a sequel to this would be like doing it in a way where you can like put the camera on a tripod and like either time delay or press a button to shoot the photo.
Yeah. And
so that could be like the kind of thing where like whilst you're like that, you can like go do something in front of it and take a photo. Like like for example, if you were on a push bike and you set your thing up where there's like a ramp or something, then it's like you go off the ramp and you take the photo when you think, and then you like rush over and have a look. But, that's getting a little too out of the scope of like, okay, I'm an indie game developer with this literally zero budget and my savings are going to run out in a few weeks, so I better get this thing done.
Mechanically quite challenging to pull off, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's where like I think if you're an indie or something, don't be afraid to like go and look at. Just one moment. Got a little guest who just needs some milk. It's my
no worries. Alright, I'll go over some of the other stuff in the game. So, yeah, as we were talking about, we have the bounties, which are the main objectives of the game. So, right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 objectives, and we got 5 of them out because of the white. Derpy-eyed bird. Yeah, I was trying to make the bird look evil with the pigeon. But, yeah, so we got Mountain Mau and 2 boom boxes. So, I mean, that's the mountain there. I mean, I know where everything is. I've played this game so many times. But, yeah, we'll get a nice shot of the mountain real quick. There we go. Oh, that's not a good shot. What do you think? I feel bad. The only thing I feel bad about doing this game is like, I know I'm not that artistic comparatively to your average person. So it's like, I know I'm just gonna play around with these colors and that's gonna be about as far as I go. Let's go with that. It looks nice to me. Anyways, yeah, so outside of the basic, outside of the basic objective bounties, there's bonus objectives as well. So the top one for each level is find 9 film canisters. So each map has its own film canisters that are scattered around. So another thing to do if you're trying to be a completionist is to pick up some film. There's 9 of them in this map, and then what was it? Yeah, if you get all bonus objectives completed, you'll also get another item unlocked. And then on top of that, I mean, I guess it's one of the other ones. So there's the recreated the postcard bonus objective. So for that, you have to stand in this area, and there's a postcard symbol at the front to help you figure it out. But anyways, if you go to the menu, you can look at this picture. So greetings from the Bay of Plenty, right? So this is the photo we have to recreate as best as possible, proportionally speaking. Proportionate? I don't know if that's the best way to put it. Maybe you can correct me on the words there, but how do you...
Yeah, well, basically, you have a little bit of wiggle room with just about everything. So, the way that works technically is basically we set like an X and Y value that you have to kind of match with your camera to the one that took that. But then I think we give you like pretty modest, I think it's like 50 degrees difference or something, or it's enough that like if it's not perfect, it still counts, but like, if you're just doing something wild, it won't. And yeah, I think it's like, with this one, the way I always line it up is you need to have it where the bird is in shot and you can also still see the people down the bottom.
Oh, true. Nope, my bad. I used to be so good at this. It's been a minute since I've done this, to be honest.
Oh, you have to... I think I've done this level like easily over like 5,000 times with just all the, debugging and making sure everything's working on. Yeah,
because we did the debugging together, man. That was so fun.
Yeah.
That's another thing I love about the game, which I'll get into in a second. But I wanna successfully get this photo taken.
I think with this one, you don't need to rotate them. That was something I made sure you didn't have to do because just like rotation's so much harder to line up with your eye.
Hey,
like,
sorry.
You got it?
Yeah. So anticlimactic, my bad. Let's get the colors good too. Yeah, sorry, keep going.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, it's like I feel like that's another thing. I had an older version of this game I was looking at the other day because we actually got contacted by a museum in Melbourne, the Museum of Screen and Moving Image, I guess, ACMI.
Yeah.
And basically they want to have a little kiosk where you can play the game, and they're like, hey, do you have any like early development shots? I was like, let me have a look. And I went to my MacBook, which was what I made the very early versions on. And I was looking at the, like very, very like way pre-alpha version of the game where you're, just walking around, Unity asset store prefabs and, I think it was just like the objectives were like basically modeled on the Tony Hawk objectives. But then I was thinking of ones like, recreate this thing, you know what I mean? Because like I believe it was Kingdom Hearts. There's like a thing in Kingdom Hearts 3 where you have to like take photos of Mickey Mouse logos, I believe it is, which is like kind of crazy. Like I'm still like not quite sure how they like program that, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah. Yeah, wait, what was I saying now? Oh, right. So yeah, one of the aspects that I really like about this game is, I mean, it's definitely an artsy title, so you can definitely have the free range to be as artsy and creative as you want, but I like how they don't actually force you to at the same time. So, you implemented the speedrun mode, right, into this game. And then... Yeah,
I think, sorry, you go, and then I'll have a big ramble about speedrun.
I'll ramble, then you ramble, how about that? Oh yeah, but what was it? Yeah, so, what was it? When, oh man, sorry, I lost my spot for a second. Okay, yeah. So when you, for example, when I take the photo of this Union Jack, I can take it like completely blurred or like just barely in, and it doesn't force me to make it artsy or like have it focused, So it's like if I'm really going for the lowest time possible, you can really just cut that number down as fast as you can. And I really like that it really lets you do that. And then of course all the bonus objectives are optional. So once I get all these basic ones out, you can finish the level. So, I mean, you can take anywhere between, 15 seconds for the level up to, like, I don't know, hours,
For the whole game, is someone's beaten it in, like, 6 minutes.
Dang!
That's, like, including the DLC. Like, because they are just... Here's the thing, like, if you look there on the pause screen right now, there's a little checkbox that says photo mode.
Yeah.
All that does is just make it that...
Yeah, I turned that off.
Editing your photos, it just goes straight in.
Yep.
And then another item I added was, and it's an item you have to unlock by completing the bonus objectives, was one where basically you don't have to do the animation of, like, the character pulling the, next line of film in, and it's just like... I feel like something I've thought about for a while is kind of like speedruns are a very good way of like determining if your game is very like instantly playable and like if you need to sort of trim down some fat. Like if you think about a speedrun and think about any speedrun you've ever seen, and there's like the first 10 minutes is someone just like standing in a hallway waiting for like people to sort of finish. Talking or whatever, it probably means you need to cut down your start bit, right? Like, I watched a video recently which was about, the new Deus Ex, Human Revolution versus the older one, and the video essayist, and some people can probably guess what I'm talking about, who the video essayist is, but basically, they were talking about how you could have a thing where you walk around, the office for like the first hour. Yeah. You could just like start the game straight at the objective. And he was like, guys, start the game here. And I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of a good point. Like you can have this like longer intro, and it is sometimes really good to have, but like if you're thinking about it from like purely a speedrun, it's like, it makes way more sense, I think, to just start the game straight in the gameplay, because then it's like, okay, whoever's playing it is straight into the run, and like then you think about kind of like doing a rerun and replay and stuff ends up being like much more exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think these kind of cutscenes can add atmosphere and boost the overall feel of the game, is what I've seen. But I mean, it can definitely slow down pacing, especially if they're not like skippable. Like non-skippable cutscenes are like everyone's worst fear, I feel like, especially second time through. You're like, oh god. Not a fan.
Nura Poga says Half-Life 1 starts with you having to wait to arrive to the facility. Yeah, I guess like that is true, but like, the moment you get off the little cart, it's like you can just beeline it straight to the suit and start pushing the little cart along. There's not like, a bit, I guess, where Barry sort of spends 5 minutes telling you about his wife and kids before he, gets hit or anything like that. But, I'm not, here's the thing, when it comes to like game design, I think there's never a rule. Like anyone who's telling you this is what you should do because it's a rule of game design probably doesn't know what they're talking about, because it's always going to be subjective. Like, it's really up to you, I guess, as a designer to find the sweet spot of like, this fits my vision. You know what I mean? And is the vision something where it is like, you know, playable straight from the start, or is it more the kind of thing where you have to, what's the word? Like, you have to basically, you know, because there are some games I think where the slow start is still super memorable. Like, I'm thinking of, you know, Shadow of the Colossus, right? I'm sure everyone here has probably played it or knows about that game, where basically you have, how do I put it, you know, this tutorial basically of going to the first Colossus, where it's, you know, you're not really doing heaps, but, you know, at the same time, it's building so much atmosphere to when, like, you see that first Colossus, like, literally just walk past a tree and the tree falls over, and it's just like, you know, the build-up is, like, totally worth it. You know, for me, I think that, you know, going forward, I really want to make games where they're, like, very, you know, gameplay playable type, if that makes sense. Like, where it's, you know, starting the game, you kind of, you know, like, think about, like, you know, the game Bloodborne. I really like that game.
Yeah.
And I basically, I thought about that game a lot when actually making this game. It's kind of like that idea that, like, you wake up on the table, and depending on how you play, you're either, like, at the, you know, the 100 stream, like, within a few minutes, or you're there, like, you know, you're just going to run straight past that dog and go to the 100 stream through the, you know, the lamppost, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's like, it's just a very, like, interesting way of designing a game. Yeah. So, something you guys are probably noticing, like, we're taking this pretty chill, but, like, Julian can now go to this little red box over here and basically finish the level. And, like, one of the ideas around that was kind of the idea that, like, not putting a big thing on someone's screen telling them where to go to exit the level, partially because I didn't know how to do that in Unity, because it was relatively new, but, you know, then it's also the thing of, like, what I did as a compromise was just to say, okay, if I just put that close to where you spawn, like when you started the level, I think players will instinctively sort of come back around, and it also still leads to them, like, exploring the level to sort of, like, you know, if they're exploring the level, there's a chance they'll just come across random things that'll end up being kind of like, oh yeah, I want to take a photo of this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of, I think, moments in this game where it's kind of like there's, how would you put it? Just random dioramas that you can kind of look through and take photos of.
So I think, so this you finally got through this game and you've made it. What would you say to people? I mean, anyone who works on any kind of creative project, doesn't have to be games, but some people, like, I mean, you'll hit a wall eventually, right? You'll just not feel like it, or you'll be too busy, or this or that. Especially, like, of all the people I've worked with, you've had the most, how do you say, like, conditional, how do you say, extrinsic forces, like, pushing down on you, I would say, probably. I mean, feel free to talk about that as much as you like, but, like, what would you say to people who have this, are seeing it hard to, how do you say, persevere through that?
I think a really funny story, which, you know, we haven't actually told anyone, because happened during this Xbox thing, was basically this little possum I've got in my arms. She came a little bit early.
Oh yeah.
But she so happened to come within the week when we were supposed to put the thing into Sir, and I had just a few more things to touch up. And I remember messaging you guys and being like, oh, hey guys, I'm not going to be able to make this certification deadline because little Bubby here has decided to come about a month early. And, you know, everyone was really cool about that, which, you know, I think, you know, if you're ever going to do any sort of creative endeavor, you know, you need people who are in your corner, if that makes sense, you know? When, you know, like when you're going to be doing something like that and stuff happens, you don't want to be, you know, with someone who's going to be like unacceptable, you know, that your child was born, you need to now pay us back whatever the cost was or something, you know what I mean?
You have to rear children? No way, man.
Yeah.
What made you, persevere through all the hardships that happen through this game.
I think when we were first making the game, it was this kind of thing where, like, I think I had a lot to say about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, we've often seen in, I guess, the West, you know, like this pushback against political games, I guess, but, you know, I think at some point in the game, because I wanted to talk about a lot of stuff that was related to, like, climate change and stuff like that, because for those who don't know, like, the game's kind of based on the bushfires that happened in Australia, and my mum's house got destroyed by that. And I actually just moved recently because that same area I was in just had catastrophic flooding, and the whole town's basically got to be demolished. But you know, it's this sort of thing where at about one point making the game, because I think a lot of people probably are scared of, you know, the pushback you'll get from talking about something like climate change or whatever.
Yeah.
I just decided, fuck it, like, I'm gonna just do this, and if people don't like that, they can go and play literally anything else.
There's plenty of games.
It turned out, you know, a lot of people were like, hey, yeah, that's literally what I'm going through right now, because when the game then launched, all of the critiques about, you know, government inaction on that stuff were super applicable to COVID all of a sudden, because, you know, a lot of people's governments were not even taking COVID seriously. And you know, one thing that I said back then was sort of like, I thought it was sort of interesting that, like, people were saying climate change was a hoax invented by China. And then literally when COVID comes out, people say it's a hoax invented by China. And you go, these guys are just flipping the script around on this stuff. I decided to do that, and then when we made the DLC, it was sort of a similar thing of, like, you had sort of, the DLC is kind of based on a lot of stuff, but, like, I think one of the things would be police states and stuff. So, hang on, I'm going to feed this little bubby. So
no worries.
Back to you, Julian.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, I've been slacking on the gameplay outside of just taking photos. I'll get back into it, but yeah, we're in an underground area now. I think, yeah. So this game touches on a lot of some political notes, I guess would be the way to put it, and let's see, themes, I guess. But
as I said, it's like Jet Set Radio, but bringing up to the modern age. You know, I think, like, Jet Set Radio, they kind of, like, it's all there. It's just that it's coated in coolness, I guess, and that's kind of like the approach that this game also takes. Is like, you know, there's a lot of stuff I think about, not just like, you know, political, like, neoliberal government issues, but there's also like a lot of stuff about, you know, like, I guess you would say, like, contemporary colonization and, like, a lot of sort of indigenous issues and stuff in there. So, like, you know, one of the whole things you'll notice is, like, with the friends is, you know, they're all Maori, but the idea is that, like, they're not tokenistic Maori characters that you often see in games. And there's also, you know, Maori characters there who have fair skin, because that's, like, another conversation that's sort of had about this stuff, like, something that's, I guess, you know, there's this sort of term people use called urban Maori, which has got a whole lot of baggage to it and a lot of this stuff. And basically this game was kind of about just putting a middle finger up to certain ideas and saying, like, shut up, like, you know, we exist, we're here. You know, there's like a lot of nasty stuff, and I think it's this idea of, like, making a game that's basically just existing, and, you know, that form of this existence is itself a form of, like, resistance, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, to put people in a, how do you say, I mean, you have people label people for sense of categorization, and then through categorization comes, how do you say, association, and then that's where you can really just end up, how do you say, making things more messy than it should be. Oh man. Yeah. So if anyone, sorry, real quick though, if anyone has any questions for the developer while we're on live, feel free to throw anything in chat, and we'll see what we can get around to. So Red Sky Generation is the translation of the game, and he had a really good explanation as to why he went with Red Sky, if you'd like to go into that.
Yes, so basically the idea is that just one sec, she's got to have a little sit now.
So cute.
The idea behind it is kind of like, it's that red sky you see just as the sun's going down. You know, that really like red, orange, like almost the cover, like the color of like, you know, a heating element or something. You know what I mean? Like that really deep orange. Like it's that one that you see on like that final sunset or that final sight. And so like, there's a lot of reasons I chose that name. The first one was kind of like this idea that the sky shouldn't be red. In that sense of like when these bushfires happened in Australia, the sky was red. Like it was full of smoke, and because of the fire, you know, the light from the fire travels through the smoke. And like, you know, if you think about in movie terms, the way they get laser sights to show up, you know, on film is they put smoke in the room so that the light can travel through the smoke, right? It's very thin smoke, so you don't see it on the thing, but that's how light travels. So when you have a bushfire happening and there's all the smoke in the area, the light itself actually travels through the smoke and it becomes this red, right? And so this idea is that something's wrong, and it's this apocalyptic red color. And the idea around that is when you play the game, you see how like, you know, the media and the politicians are talking about it, and they're talking about it as if it's not a big deal, or that it's, you know, become normal sort of thing. The other part about that is when we think about that idea of like a red sky, it's the idea of like a sun setting, right? And so it's this idea of this is the red sky generation. This is the last generation before the sun goes down and never comes up again. So it's the idea of like the Umurangi generation is the last generation who has to watch the earth die. And you'll see that when you play the game. The language is Te Reo Maori, so I'm Maori, and the game's based on Maori culture. So Maori people are the indigenous people from New Zealand, or we call it Aotearoa. And part of the other reason of using Maori words in the game's title and also sort of in the game's content, like some of the objectives use, you know, Maori words you have to sort of find in the environment. It's not like you need to know what the word is, but, well, actually in some of them you do, but it's the idea is that in the environment itself, you can see that word close to the objective. So it's a little bit of like teaching you a new word. So like, for example, in this level, one of the objectives is take photo of Manaya. Now, a lot of people might go, what's a Manaya? If you search around the level, eventually you'll find a certain statue that has a plaque on it that says that this is a Manaya. Alternatively, you can just Google the word Manaya and you'll start to learn some new things. So that's a Manaya there. Julian's just taking a photo of.
Oh crap! Sorry.
Hi.
Got the selfie one.
You don't want to hear that? So basically, yeah, the idea is that when you sort of, the reason I put those words in that were basically Māori words is part of this, you know, stuff that we sort of talk about in terms of like decolonization or indigenous knowledge. It's this idea that it's about putting indigenous words and indigenous ideas up on par with not indigenous words and ideas, and saying, hey, they're actually, you know, just as valid and equal. So, you know, the idea around that is basically, if you want to get really epistemological with it, so very philosophical, it's that idea that you can say, basically a lot of Western philosophy has its origins actually in Greece. And so, you know, when you think about that, that's like Plato and, you know, Heraclitus and all those philosophers there. And their epistemic framework is this idea that knowledge exists between someone's ears, and, you know, people with the biggest brains are the smartest and whatnot. And so if you're going to go from a very philosophical thing, the idea is that like indigenous knowledge is a different epistemic origin, and because of that difference in epistemic origin, it sort of informs how everything tends to like come from that. I know that that's like a huge tangent on a lot of the stuff, but yeah, like basically before I worked in games, I worked at a university, and you kind of need to get to that really deeper layer to really start, I think, to unpack a lot of that stuff. Yeah, sorry.
No, go for it,
Hey,
man.
Julian, did you want to show off the creative mode? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I could do that too. I was gonna, yeah, we could do the creative mode, and then at the end I want to show the speed run mode for the single level. I don't want to show too much, but I want to show that you could do it. This ended up being my favorite part of the game in the end. Especially for debugging, man. Like, being able to zoom through levels is so helpful.
Yeah,
oh, nice,
it's
yeah.
awesome. One thing I do want to do basically with my next game is make a really good debug menu, because you don't realize how much time you save until you've got something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, so there's this slider here where you can change the time of day, and then you've also got the sky. You can change the sky to like pretty much every sky from the you know, like the base game. You've also got this time scale when shooting, so that's just like a way of it slows everything down when you go to take a shot. So you've got like, I think one of my favorite ones I think is just called Vaporwave, which is like a custom one I made just for thing. You've also got things where you can change the fog.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. Clunchboy says this game is most fun in creative mode, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it's like, it was, I think, a huge mistake on my end not to include that from the start. But yeah, I guess once again, didn't have the time or luxury to fully flesh a lot of things out. And, you know, I think it's the kind of thing where I just tried to be pretty humble with, you know, what I could and couldn't do. And if people could, you know, like, people could sort of, you know, and you're upfront about it and you say like, oh, well, what do you guys want? And a lot of people wanted some pretty good stuff and we were able to accommodate for it. So,
yeah.
like, you know, when the game first came out, you know, there was no controller support and there was no key rebinding or anything like that. And, you know, it's the kind of thing where certain players who, you know, need that accessibility were like, well, you know, I can't play it until it's there. And, you know, it was the kind of thing where I was pretty happy to provide it and try and implement a system that I thought would, you know, help all that stuff through.
Yeah.
Hey, Julian, what you should do is you should use the ghost mode and go through the floor and take a photo through
Ghost
the floor,
mode?
because
Oh my god.
that'll, you know, then that way we can go full
Oh my god.
circle and tell people about.
I never did this.
Wait, you never did ghost mode?
I never did ghost mode, actually.
So if you press B, you can, yeah, go through. And yeah, you get to see the seams of how everything's made, but, you know,
If you could do it all over again, what's one thing that you would change? If you had to. What's one thing you would change, and what's one thing you would never even consider readjusting? Or like, you know, keeping, how do you say, making it different than what it is now?
So, and this is some advice for anyone who's getting into games. Actually, when a tutorial says this is probably the way you should do it, you should probably just follow the tutorial. Well, actually, that's actually, hang on. If it's an official tutorial from Unity, you should do that. But if it's a YouTuber who's kind of just, hey, what's up, guys? My other camera's in the shop, and I'm going to show you how to do this thing.
Yeah.
Take that with a huge grain of salt, because sometimes that person might be telling you something that is going to absolutely bite you in the ass. Like, you know, 6 months from now, you'll be like, oh, why is my character not rendering? Or why is this thing not working? And then you go and you spend like 2 days being like pulling the game apart and putting it back together and trying to figure it out. And then you realize like, oh yeah, the person who like told me to do this thing on like, you know, this idea was totally wrong. Like,
Top 10 animal trails.
well, there's like a really good YouTube channel called Brackies, right? And I think a lot of people who have made Unity games have probably watched Brackies tutorials. And this is absolutely not a slight against Brackies or anything like that. But I remember at one point he was sort of showing people how to do an audio manager, and he said, oh, the easiest way to call this is to just use the find object of type command. And it is a really good command. It just basically finds an object in your scene that has a certain script attached to it. Thing about that though is that's like a really inefficient way of doing that. Like the better way to do it is actually to like instance that thing, and then you can just call it like by instance. And it's like, you know, I think that when I was originally learning this, because I'd done instancing before in ActionScript, because that's what I did before Unity, and I was kind of like, okay, this is not how I think I should do it, but I'll, you know, give this person the benefit of the doubt. And then like when I was porting the game to Switch, it was like kind of slow, and I was like, what the heck is causing all this issue? And what it was is every time a sound effect would play, it would be basically searching for the sound effect manager through like, you know, 1,000 different objects in the scene, and then, you know, using a sound effect, and it was just like not super efficient. Yeah, basically, I don't know. I think there's probably like a lot of people who at some point want to start their game developer journey, and I'd say the official tutorials are probably the ones you should stick to the most.
Yeah, but yeah, thanks everybody for joining, and it was nice to see you all again, and yeah, we'll see you guys back in Discord. If you don't know our Discord, let me put the link in there. Oh goodness. All right.
Thanks everyone.
Alrighty, ready. Thank you everybody.